Game day is here for the Duke football team. A big rivalry, the North Carolina Tar Heels hosting our Duke Blue Devils. What's it going to take to be victorious? We're going to talk about that and so much more on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with JJ Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us on game day. Duke football getting set to take on North Carolina tonight in Chapel Hill at Keenan Memorial Stadium. We love this rivalry so much. Let's see what the game has in store for us a little bit later today. Josh Cox will join us here on the program today. Locked On Blue Devils, your daily one-stop shop. A special Saturday show for you here to get you set for the big football game coming up later tonight between Duke and North Carolina. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever you get your podcasts. We're out every weekday. Watch our show on YouTube, like the videos, share them with your friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, your support just means so much to us here at Locked On Blue Devils. So without further ado, let me bring on my good pal, Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast, who joins us here now. And Josh, here we are, 6-3, Duke football getting set to take on North Carolina.
Yeah, it's been that matchup that many Duke fans have had circled, the entire season. The hated rivals. Obviously, wish we could go into this game at full strength going against them, but going to be a fun game nonetheless.
Nonetheless, it will, and we're expecting big things from the Duke defense as they've shown out the entire season. They got off to such a good start, not giving up so many points each and every week, and a big win on Thursday of last week against Wake Forest. The quarterback position is one that we're always monitoring, and Riley Leonard's health is something big that we're trying to talk about as well. Does not appear like Riley Leonard is going to be the guy for Duke today against North Carolina. We've seen Grayson Loftis now. We've seen Henry Beelan IV in action. So I'm just excited for both of those guys. Whoever is the starter at quarterback for Duke, they're going to gain more experience than their first starts of the season, right? You're going to feel a little bit more comfortable. Yes, it's greater competition. This North Carolina team is for real, but at least you don't have those kind of first game jitters once you're stepping out there.
Yeah, and I'll say this much as well. 99% sure it'll be Grayson Loftis, and that means that now for 2 weeks in practice, for 2 full weeks, he's been able to run with the ones. Kevin Johns now for a second week has been able to, maybe tailor make some plays, some routes maybe that Grayson wants to throw, things like that. So it will definitely not. It's not a short week, 9 days instead of 4 days. And, there's been plenty of time for the offensive side to prep. So that's definitely a better situation than what Duke was heading into last Thursday in the Wake Forest game. And that is, only a 4-day coming off of that game and a brand new quarterback starting, as a true freshman. So, yeah, I believe the offense will definitely be ready to go as much as possible, right, for the game tonight.
So we're looking at Duke and North Carolina. Obviously, a big rivalry. The victory bell's up for grabs. It looks way better in royal blue than it does in that baby blue that the Tar Heels have. So let's see what Duke can do to get the job done. We'll have some keys to victory coming up a little bit later for this Duke team. But speaking of Loftis in particular, Connor O'Neill was on the show a little bit earlier in the week, kind of breaking down that game and his insight. Remarkable, running both Devils Illustrated and Deacons Illustrated. Those two programs he knows quite well. But you look at the numbers, Loftis goes 7 of 19, but there were 5 drops. 5 drops by that Duke football team, and 12 of 19 is a whole different story than what the final stats ended up being for just 86 yards total in Loftis passing.
You're exactly right, JJ. I made the same point on our Twitter soon after the game was over, and that is if you add 5 receptions And then you add 80 to 90 yards
Sure.
and 1 touchdown. I mean, one of the drops was going to be he could have moonwalked into the end zone. And so, like, if you add that to those numbers, all of a sudden you're like, man, what an impressive display at quarterback for a true freshman who had never played meaningful snaps in his career. And so I believe Duke has a lot of confidence in Loftus. And, Kevin Johns has made mention of this before. When Grayson Loftis showed up on campus back in January, he was slow. He was a step slow. He couldn't get it figured out. And honestly, Johns was honest. He had a bad spring. But over the summer and then in the fall camp, it's like he got his legs under him. He got calmed down a little bit. And now here he is. Who would have known? Who would have ever known that here we sit, Wake Forest game, UNC game, and it's Grayson Loftis. And he's the guy.
6-3 on the year for this Duke football team, 3-2 in the ACC. Duke has already secured a spot in a bowl game. Let's see if they can keep climbing and get into a much premier bowl game as they close out the season. 3 more games left on the schedule for the Duke Blue Devils. We'll take our first break and come back with more coverage after this timeout here on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. All right, passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. And it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. It's eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available for U.S. customers. Let's move forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils Game Day, Duke and North Carolina. Josh Cox is here. He's from the Section 17 podcast, also does some work with the Durham Devils Club. Tell us all about the great work that you've got out there right now.
Sure thing. Yeah. Section 17 podcast. We've been doing that for 4 years now, 4 seasons. And so if you've not connected with us yet, you can do so at Duke FB Talk on social media, and then DukeFootballTalk.com. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, Section 17, we'd appreciate it, as I know JJ does. Appreciates all the support. If you're YouTube, we're on YouTube as well. Subscribe there. And then, DurhamDevilsClub.com. I do some work with them. That is the NIL arm of Duke football. And all I can tell you is the future of Duke football's the Duke football program will rest on the amount of support the Duke student athletes can get through NIL. Just is what it is. Just plain and simple. Can't say it any more clear than that. And that is the case. Honestly, that's not unique at Duke. That is the case at any university that's trying to compete in football across the country. And so we're doing rolling there at the Durham Devils Club. There's a lot of perks and things like that. In fact, earlier this week, we sat down with Tyler Santucci, defensive coordinator for Duke, and some of our higher level members were able to have a live Zoom with him. And think about that. I mean, it's the week of the UNC game, and you get to be on a live Zoom and get your questions answered by Coach Santucci. We did the same thing earlier in the season with Coach Johns. So there's some perks and stuff like that. So anyway, there's the 2 things that my hands are involved in. I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later on. Not today, but I'm talking about later on in the season, but also doing some stuff with Duke Report for basketball as well.
Yeah, check it all out. And obviously the name, image, and likeness arm, as you're mentioning, is so important when we're looking at these programs this time of year, because we're starting to hear certain football players across the country are already trying to figure out, all right, maybe the school's not great for me. Once again, the portal's going to be crazy wild, as it is each and every offseason. And so want to make sure you're in a good spot. We talked about this a little bit earlier this week, but for folks that want to dive a little bit deeper into what that looks like, really go check out On3, because their NIL valuation for players is top notch. You're not finding that type of publicly reported kind of numbers out there in regards to Cooper Flagg. And specifically, we talked about that a little bit earlier. And I want to read this again in a new comment, Josh, for folks that might have missed this earlier in the week. But Cooper Flagg currently has an on-3 NIL valuation of $893,000, second among all high school basketball players, behind only Bryce James, the younger son of LeBron James. The on-3 NIL valuation is the industry's leading index that sets high school and college athletes' projected annual value. The NIL valuation does not act as a tracker of the value of NIL deals an athlete has completed to date, but rather signifies an athlete's value at a certain moment in time. So, again, I think it's fair to take Bryce James out of this, considering who his father is. Yep. $893,000 is the current value for a 16-year-old. Cooper Flagg has not turned 17 yet.
Well, like we said, Cooper Flagg is going to get a bag, right? And he's going to get a bag before he gets into the NBA. Yeah. And good. Hey, listen, good on him.
Absolutely,
good for him, man.
Absolutely.
I'm not against it in any way. Obviously, my personal thoughts on the entire NIL thing is that obviously we all wish there was some sort of guidelines, guideposts that everyone could agree upon. Because right now there really aren't any, and so each individual university is kind of coming up with their own thing. Some states are trying to regulate some things, which is unfair. For one state to regulate and another state not to. So it is crazy right now. But I will say this: every single university is doing their best to certainly through collectives and other ways to get that money there. Because hey, listen, for far too long, these guys played for a scholarship, quote unquote, and that's it. And all these coaches and all these athletic departments were raking in millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. And, for the first time, that money's going to get distributed a little bit differently. And so it's a whole new landscape.
I want to get back to this football game that we've got tonight between Duke and North Carolina there in Chapel Hill. You mentioned all the connections you've got, and I would just echo Josh Cox is the absolute man in the world of Duke football. Not only the inside the program, the kind of media that surrounds it, but your start, Section 17, you're one of the ones that's pouring into the community, being a lifelong Duke guy. I'm curious, conversations you've had with the community throughout the week. What are we expecting tonight? Keenan Memorial, 50,500, the announced capacity of that stadium. What's the Duke contingency looking like? You hearing a lot of people going over to the game tonight? What's kind of the vibe right now around town?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, we do score predictions, every week with the fan base, and overwhelmingly, Duke has been the pick. I will say on our podcast, we were not quite as positive on that. I believe we were three of us picked UNC to win, a close one, and then one picked Duke to win. But the Duke fan base seems to be very positive. I do know this. I do know that Duke sold out its allotment of tickets that they were given by UNC.
Great.
And so those were sold out. Obviously, the secondary market is still in play. Even today, game day is still in play. And so you would encourage people. Now, I will say this. I also get this. There are some Duke fans who are like, I'm never stepping foot over there, right? Like, and I mean this for a couple of reasons. First of all, the rivalry, and I get that too. They don't want to. The second thing is Keenan's not a great place, to watch a football game. The parking is terrible. The way the seats are structured, they're like super uncomfortable.
Right.
It's just not a fun place to go watch a football game. So, going there, you're really going there because you really do want to support your Blue Devils. And you really do, or whatever.
Shout out to those people.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, here's what I'll say tonight. My opinion, Duke is playing with house money. I believe the fan base kind of understands that as well. If you were to say at the beginning of the season that we're going into UNC, we could potentially be without Graham Barton. We could potentially be without Jacob Monk. We could potentially be without Dorian Mosey. We are going to be without Riley Leonard. We're probably without Henry Beelan. And we could go through this whole thing and we say, but we still think Duke can win the game. Like, we would have been like, no, there's no way. So kudos to this team. They've not given up. Coach Elko said it this past week, and after the Wake Forest game, maybe this will shut anybody up who continues to question the heart of that football team.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about what it's going to take to get a win, and we'll do that after our final timeout here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at JCE Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I, as we get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. And I'm thankful for that connection we have. Today, I want our chat to be a little bit more personal. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered, my friend. Thanks to our partners at JCE Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics like Viagra and others are available prescriptions that you could find at jacemedical.com. To receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication, all you need to do is go to jacemedical.com. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. A verified customer had this to say about Jace, quote, "I'm thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half in order to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone," end quote. Again, go to jacemedical.com, promo code Locked On for $20 off your purchase. JCE Medical, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils alongside my pal Josh Cox from the Section 17 podcast. I'm JJ Jackson. So Grayson Loftis, the guy at quarterback. We know Jordan Moore is also a key player for this Duke football team, having previous quarterback experience at the college level. I think scoring is going to be really important. Obviously, you got to score more than the other team. But when Duke is in the red zone in particular, that's something that I know has been highlighted throughout the week. We've heard Elko talk about it a little bit. If it's 3 points, it's 3 points. But in the red zone in particular, when you've got the younger quarterback, you got to rely on being able to put points on the scoreboard. So taking care of the football, something that Duke is absolutely going to need to do.
Yeah, things change once you get inside the 20. The playbook changes. The defense is able to cover a little bit more of the field, all those types of things. I think Duke's really going to need to rely on their running game and their offensive line. Even if Jacob Monk and Graham Barton do not play, as long as and obviously we won't know that until game time. But Scott Elliott, Justin Pickett, Jacob Hornibrook, Brian Parker, and Mo McIntyre. That's been the offensive line with those guys out, and those guys are going to have to stay healthy. They're going to have to move UNC, and UNC's got some talent, on that D line. They're not the best defensive team we faced. They've got some talent there, and I really do believe we're going to have to see Duke really in the red zone. Going to have to rely on the run game to really move the ball to get it where it needs to go.
Yeah, running the football is going to be so key. They've been able to run it so well throughout the season, and I want to see that take place. Looking at one other key that we want to talk about briefly here, just simply don't panic early on, because I can remember 2 years ago, right? Mateo Durant has a long run in that game against North Carolina in Chapel Hill, but the Tar Heels threw the first punch, and it kind of went south after there have been games certainly in these big-time rivalries, even when Carolina has come to Wallace Wade. If it's a little uneasy early, sometimes it's got that snowball effect to keep on moving. And in a game like this, when it is Grayson Loftis making his first start on the road, true freshman, it's okay to panic a little bit, but hey, don't. That's kind of what we're trying to preach here.
Yeah, absolutely. JJ, you're 100% correct, because what you can afford, if you don't score first, whatever, right? You get down a touchdown, you even get down a second touchdown, but it's in that 10 to 14 range that really the rest of the game gets decided. Do you pack it in? Do you panic? Do you turn the ball over and all of a sudden go down 21? Or do you score and bring it back within 7 before halftime, and then you get the ball at the third? What those scenarios, they play out, right? And you're exactly right. The panic is the problem. And so, I love the keys to victory. I combined 1 and 3, in my talk, but really 3, trusting the run game. I'll say this for Duke fans, trusting the run game, even if you're down, right? Like a lot of times we think if you're down a touchdown, you're down 10 points, here we go. We got to throw the ball. No, you don't have to. You don't have to. You can still run the football. Duke is best when it's running north-south, when it's hitting those holes with Jordan Waters. I don't know what what his status is going to be, but we saw Jalen Coleman come in at the end of the Wake Forest game and really provide a spark on that last drive as Duke drove down for the field goal. You also have Peyton Jones back there, true freshman, who's yet to really get, a good opportunity. So I think you're exactly right. Got to score in the red zone. Can't turn the ball over down there for sure. Run the football. Run the ball. Let Grayson Loftis open up the passing game off of the run game, and then you're exactly right. If you get down, it's all good. The rest of the game, just don't turn the ball over again. Right there. Score on your next possession, and let's try to get back in it, because I do believe this. I do believe while UNC has a potent offense and they can score at ease, they also can make some mistakes. They can turn the ball over. This is a team that lost to Virginia at home. And so if Virginia can beat them in Keenan, certainly Duke has a shot.
And let's make it happen. I mean, let's make sure that, if we can throw the first punch a little bit later today, go ahead, do that. Make sure that you can kind of set the tone as to what this game is, because I think that's the goal too, right? This season for North Carolina has not gone the way that they wanted. We haven't talked about sort of the Tar Heels angle as much in all of this, but it's forced them to panic a little bit earlier in the game than they want. Because in a lot of ways, if you're North Carolina, oh, wow, they've got, they're in a situation here where Drake May is possibly leaving at the end of the year, likely leaving at the end of the year, and just find a way to punch early with them.
No, I would agree. I mean, their losses, Georgia Tech and Virginia really did, I believe, open up their eyes, because look at it. They were undefeated in the top 10, heading into that Virginia game, and they lose 2 in a row. Now they got back on track last week. They played Campbell. Smart on their part, obviously, to get that guaranteed win in November. I actually love that schedule for teams when they do that. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely beatable. They've got some question marks. Now they've got a high-powered offense. Tez Walker, obviously got reinstated 4 games in. He's a threat. Amarian Hampton, man, I mean, Duke has played.
He can run.
Duke has played
out of the backfield.
Gauntlet at running backs, man. It's like Jawar Jordan, Benson of Florida State, Estime from Notre Dame, not to count Shipley and Maffa from Clemson. So Duke has really faced some incredible running backs, and Hampton's on that list, right, of incredible running backs too. So Duke's defense is going to have to step up, control the line of scrimmage there, get to the quarterback a little bit, and then we'll see what happens. That's why you play the football game. They're not unbeatable, obviously.
Enjoy the game later tonight, Josh. It's going to be a fun one, and we'll talk next week to see how it all goes.
All right, JJ, have a great one, man. We'll see you.
All right, that's Josh Cox joining us here on Locked On Blue Devils today. That's going to do it for our show here today. Thank you so much for your support, as always, here with Locked On Blue Devils. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on X at @LO_Blue Devils. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast platform of choice as well. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. We'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.